everyone, I'm Juanita. Welcome to the Scientific Python interviews. Today we have Inessa Pawson. Inessa Pawson is a NumPy Contributor Experience Lead and a member of the NumPy Steering Council. She has been organizing the Maintainers Summit at PyCon US since 2020 to foster best practices on how to maintain and develop sustainable open source projects and thriving communities. A prominent figure in the Southwest Florida tech community, Inessa has co-founded and sits on the boards of several for-impact nonprofit organizations to widen the tech talent pipeline and encourage innovation and economic diversification in the region. Hello, Inessa. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Juanita. Thank you for the invitation to speak to you today, and thank you for the introduction. To add, I'm originally from Ukraine, currently based in Naples, Florida. I've been actively contributing to the scientific Python ecosystem, mainly to NumPy, since 2019. And in my current role as NumPy contributor experience lead, I'm responsible for onboarding and supporting contributors, revising and introducing policies to address identified gaps in the project governance, and developing programs to diversify pathways of contribution to the project.
Wow, that sounds cool. So what drove you to contribute to Scientific Python, and what was your first Scientific Python contribution?
The beginning of my journey as a contributor to the Scientific Python community is somewhat unusual. In 2019, at the SciPy US conference, I met several NumPy core developers, including Ralph Gomers. He was about to start the redesign of NumPy.org, the official website of the NumPy project, and was actively looking for contributors with relevant skills. I spent quite a few years developing digital products as a front-end developer, a UX researcher, and later as a product and project lead. So I offered my help. On GitHub, my first contribution to NumPy was an update of the website's main navigation bar. But I must say this was preceded by several months of mapping out all the website stakeholders, developing personas, revising the old content, and creating a new one to meet the persona's needs. So as you can tell from my example, there are quite a few ways to contribute to open source besides submitting patches to the source code. And this is something I'm actively working on in NumPy, diversifying pathways of contribution to the project and educating the community about these opportunities. Reviewing pull requests, triaging issues, developing educational material, maintaining the website, adding or improving graphic design, translating and localizing the content, writing grant proposals. These are all current needs of NumPy, and we would welcome help.
Yeah, I think it's very important to know that there are a lot of ways to contribute and form your own path in Scientific Python open source. So thank you for sharing your experience. So how do you think your experience at public relations is valuable for the NumPy community?
I must say, in my professional career, I have tried on quite a few hats. A school teacher, a quality assurance engineer, a full stack developer, a marketing specialist, a data analyst, a communication specialist, a product owner, that's to name a few. I find all these experiences and acquired knowledge very helpful in my current role. And to answer your question, the open source model of software development is highly collaborative by nature. So the ability to communicate well with a large and diverse audience is an essential skill for community building and organizing. As a contributor experience lead, I interact directly with dozens of people on a daily basis, and quite a few hundreds, I imagine, are reading my messages on GitHub and in the NumPy communication channels. These are NumPy users and contributors with very diverse professional and cultural backgrounds, and also with different levels of English proficiency. So my approach in communicating with such a diverse audience can be called radical kindness. It can be summarized as treating everyone with compassion and meeting people where they are on their professional and open source journeys.
This is great. The different skills that the community is looking for. I feel like there's a lot of things that sometimes we don't consider, and we think it's just like you need to code and that's it, but it's not really. It's like there's a lot of things involved in what a scientific Python community is. So that's great. Can you share a bit about your experience organizing events like the Maintainer Summit at PyCon US and the PyLadies South Florida meetup?
Sure. I'm a strong believer in the power of collaboration. I was inspired by Carol Whelan, who is one of the PSF directors, to start growing the Python community in my region. And in 2019, I founded a PyLadies chapter. We were co-hosting events with PyLadies Miami for 2 years. We co-hosted 22 events in total, and at that point we decided that it was time to join forces officially. So PyLadies Southwest Florida and PyLadies Miami merged just 2 months ago, and now we are PyLadies South Florida. And as for the Maintainers Summit at PyCon US, this is the event that was started in 2019 by Jackie Kazil and one of her collaborators. I picked it up in 2020, and I've been organizing it ever since. For the past 2 years, Alex DeSigueira, one of your guests, was my co-organizer. The idea is to foster best practices on how to maintain and develop sustainable open source projects and thriving communities.
I think organizing events is always a challenge. So I really admire that you take a lead on that. So what other projects have you been involved in besides open source?
I like to keep myself busy. So as I mentioned before, I'm dedicated to the region where I live, to Southwest Florida. It has a very small tech scene, but it has noticeably grown in the past decade thanks to the community leaders recognizing the need for diversification of the local economy. I'm involved with several nonprofit organizations that are focused on widening the tech talent pipeline and encouraging innovation and economic diversification in the region. Albus Code, Future Makers Coalition, Florida Southwestern State College, one of the largest state colleges in the country, and the Tech Alliance of Southwest Florida.
Wow, nice. You do keep yourself busy. Okay, last question. Can you give some advice to someone that wants to contribute to a scientific Python ecosystem?
Sure. From my experience, there is no one best way to make your first contribution to an open source project. It depends on the combination of a project's needs and your interests and skills. Start small. Start small using the skills you already have or actively developing. And if you're interested in contributing to NumPy, please reach out to me via Twitter or stop by and say hi at one of our community events.
Thank you so much for your advice, and thank you so much for taking the time of doing this. And welcome to the Scientific Python community.
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you so much for having me.